Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Swarm 11 launch webinar. The theme of Swarm 11 is accelerating on-demand access to archived video. Before we begin, I'd like to get a little housekeeping out of the way. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them throughout the webinar. There's a question dialog window. We also have some links and some resources for you in the attachments and links session. But please do feel free to ask questions at any time. If you're watching the recording, you can go ahead and send questions to info@caringo.com and we'll respond to them via email. Just let us know what webinar you're watching. Now we'll get to the regularly scheduled program. First, let's start with some intros. My name's Adrian Herrera. I'm the VP of Marketing, and with me today I have Eric Day. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Adrian. I'm Eric Day, Director of Product at Caringo, and I've been involved in all aspects of our Swarm development from the beginning. So I'm excited to talk to you today about what we've got in this latest release.
And just a little background on Caringo. We're not going to spend too much time on this slide, but we've been around for a really long time. We're founded in 2005. Since then, we have focused primarily, or solely, I should say, on storage software, specifically on object storage software. We have custom, especially the M&E and digital video industries. And here are the problems we solve. From a very high level, so our software solves the issues associated with streaming and sharing from the archive layer, the issue of multi-site collaboration, data distribution, content distribution, content management, which is inclusive of actually managing the content itself, metadata, but also tenant management, and compliance and protection. And the next slide goes over how we do that from a technical perspective. Do you want to walk everyone through this slide, Eric?
Sure. One second, Adrian. Let me.
All right.
I'll let you start. If you can start with it, let me pull this up.
Sure. Caringo Swarm is a storage platform for access, distribution, and archive. It really starts with a complete software appliance. So we have everything built into our software. You're not messing with operating system installs or a lot of the other things that you have to do with other products, other solutions out there in the market. Where we're unique is really our parallel architecture. Do you want to tell our viewers about our parallel architecture?
Yeah, absolutely. So the architecture that we've got is in the core storage system itself, all of the pieces, all the nodes in the software are able to talk with each other directly. So there is no coordination node or master nodes that get in the way and bottleneck the conversation or that limit the scale of the conversation. Literally, as you add more nodes to the system gets not only larger and able to store more, but it also gets faster because you have more endpoints that you can talk directly with. And that's a key feature of our software that we feel is very unique to it. We see a lot of architectures where they do have these master nodes or coordinators, and it's a very easy thing to succumb to when you're coming up with an architecture, but it limits the overall flexibility of the system as you get larger.
Yeah, and the reason we're bringing these features up is because these are the foundational features to our software, and we'll show you how we build upon them to provide a very targeted release towards solving some very specific issues in the digital video industry. Just kind of progressing along this slide, you have parallel architecture, but the parallel architecture also helps with our continuous protection, right, Eric? How we protect content?
That's right, and so that's part of the secret there is that as you add more nodes in the system, our ability to protect the content also increases in speed. So failure or a node failure, and I say when because you will. It's not fair to say maybe you won't. Drives always fail, so as you add more and more drives, you need the system to get faster and faster at the recovery of those drives.
And then, of course, we have managed search and share. So that's more of the value-added layer, the front-end UI, and I guess API accessible features that are unique to us. Can you walk everyone through those?
Yeah, and so that actually is something that I think is we have another couple of webinars on this, but the thing that I think a lot of storage systems miss is that they provide an interface for the storage administrators, you know, the one, the two, maybe three people that are interacting with it, but they completely forget all the users of the system. So all the users that are putting data in the system, they need a way too to help keep their content managed, to keep up with access controls for it, to understand where their data is being stored, to be able to find stuff in it. And so that's what this aspect of our system is. It's about not only administrators, but you know, the many, many more end users of the system as well.
And just to be clear, those end users, they can be end users or they can also be applications, correct?
Oh, yeah, sure, definitely.
So again, just setting the foundation of where we sit in the overall workflow perspective, from a storage perspective, we wanted to just show where Swarm fit in with some other popular storage devices that you may use. You see NVMe up there, you see fast NAS and SAN NAS, Swarm, which is object storage, and then the Cloud Archive. There could be another one there. We could have put tape, but tape is another archive solution. We'll go into that in a bit, how we support and interact with tape. But you can see Swarm here is really good at the use cases for video on demand, OTT use cases, archive use cases, and storing your masters. It's not to say that you're not going to use it in some post-production and production scenarios, but for the most part, the primary workflows are video on demand and really preserving your master copies. We just wanted to show you how everything fits in. Eric, do you have anything to add here?
I just ask you, how do we play with Cloud Archive in this scenario?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when you hear a lot of questions or when you see a lot of analysis about cloud and specifically cloud storage, a lot of times they don't describe or they don't talk about how object storage is enabling a large portion of cloud storage. So for instance, behind Amazon S3, behind Azure Blob, behind Google Cloud Storage is an object store. Then you have a more economical object store powered by tape. So Glacier and services like that are powered by tape. So from our perspective, Swarm Object Storage is an on-prem object store that has always sent data to the cloud, object storage enabled clouds, but now we're going to show how we're progressing that vision and how we're taking that one step further with this release, with that launch, or with this launch, I should say.
Great, thanks.
And with that, it sets the stage for Swarm 11. And we just went over a lot of the horizontal features of Swarm. And, arguably, a lot of object storage solutions do a lot of those object storage features we just showed you and we just discussed. Some of them are unique to us, like our parallel architecture and our focus on the end user and providing very rich ways to manage content. But this takes it even a step further. And Swarm 11 is our first vertically focused launch, and we are focused on solving the issues associated with storing, protecting, managing, and really moving around large video files. And here is the value that Swarm 11 brings to you. You are now able to access only the portion of video needed, and we're going to go into demos of how we do each one of these and describe how we do each one of these. Swarm 11 now allows you to upload files 5 times faster without specialized applications. You can now securely share and stream internally, externally in a very, very simple way. And we ensure accessibility with distributed S3 protection. And again, we'll show you how we do that in a bit. So Eric, you want to walk everyone through this slide?
Sure. So as mentioned, the partial file restore or video clipping feature in Swarm 11, the main theme here is access only the portion of the video that you need. We have folks that are putting in hour-long videos into their archival system. And if they want to pull, we have people doing, sports games or other, video recordings at venues, and they may want to just get a small 1 minute, 2 minute segment out of something that has been archived. Traditionally in the past, the workflow has been re-import the entire object or the entire project back into a local video editing suite. Well, that project could be quite large. We'll talk about that in a bit. What this feature does is lets you leave that project in the archive and yet just clip out or do a partial restore of just a very small portion of that project. So that reduces the time to last byte, meaning that you can ask the storage system to give you just the section you're interested in, make a new video of it, and then I can download just that small portion out of my storage system. And I can use that to share with people, and we'll show that in, coming up here. But the way that you make these in the system is through our content management UI. I said before, this is for the end users as well as the storage administrators. So the end users can come in the system, see what's been archived there. They can preview the video and then set the start and end points for where they wish to make this video clip, and then ask the storage system itself to do the work of transcoding that clip. We have broad support for through our API. So this allows for direct integrations. Through our API, we have broad codec support, and that is a route into integration with asset managers. So to enable asset manager systems to be able to ask the storage tier to do to make some video clip, rather than the asset manager having to traditionally, re-download the entire project in order to do that. So, Adrian, do you want to show share the demonstration of this?
Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen really fast. Okay, let me know when you see it.
I see it.
All right. And we'll talk through what we're showing. So first, you want to find the video you'd like to clip. So you can just go to any bucket and you search for the video you'd like to take a segment of. So there it is, the video is playing. Now, you need to set the start and end time, 2 different ways to do that. There is a green slider and a red slider you'll see come up here in a bit, which allow you to set the start and end time for your segment. You can also go ahead and type your start and end time into the dialog box below if you want. Now notice that the clip name is dynamically generated by the segment time. And that's how the clip is named, but we also store the source information in the metadata so that you can easily look that up through our sharing feature. Once you press the clip button, the clip is automatically available in your videos bucket. And now you are able to share that internally or externally. And we will show you how we do that in an upcoming video. But there you go. So now you can stream your new clip directly from the archive layer. There it is, Eric.
Okay. Okay, so as I was saying, I'll give you, this is an example of how the efficiency of the time to last byte is improved substantially with partial file restore. These are just some sample calculations that we did for you here, that if you take a 60-minute video at 60 frames a second, 1080p, that's approximately 1.5 terabytes worth of data. If you are so lucky from your client workstation to have a 10 gigabit connection, LAN, all the way to the storage layer, that's going to still take you 22 minutes to transfer over. So in the case of, if you had this connection, which is probably faster than most workstations would have, to the storage tier, if you had to check this whole project back out, it would still it would take you over 20 minutes to do so. Whereas you might need to just get a 1 or 2 minute clip out of that video. And so by the example here would be take the same hour-long video that's in your archive and ask the system to give you just a 3-minute clip of that footage. Well, that's a more reasonable 75 gigs worth, which is about a minute to transfer over the network. Imagine now you're going to share that with others in your organization where they're all going to do their own downloads of it. That's a substantial improvement in terms of how fast you can get that out over the network and how many bytes are moving around your internal network. Okay, so the next feature here in Swarm 11 is our attention to our batch upload feature. And again, this is in the content portion of the user interface, which, as I said, is for storage administrators, but also for end users. And so what we were hearing directly from end users is that I've got tools, a lot of the times I have tools that are oriented around this large batch uploading, bulk uploading to the system. But there are times when I'm away from my regular work area and all I have is a browser. And I need to still be able to do bulk uploading from just a web browser. And can you put this feature in? And so this is driven by user demand. What we did was we take our existing portal and we overhauled the way that our file upload works so that it is now a parallel upload directly into the storage system. This uses your modern browsers that you have already. No additional software added on to your browser. It's going to make use of the parallel upload architecture inside of Swarm. And it's going to make use of a patented feature that we have, which allows for us to take and do incremental writes into our object system. And this supports large files, and I mean large, from multi-gigabytes up to terabyte-sized files in the system. And it is tuned specifically for the case of how fast can I get a large set of these files up into the system. Anything you want to add?
No, I guess the only thing to add, I mean, would this work on a mobile device? Say you have an editor working out in the field that's shooting something in the field. Can they go ahead and upload to a Swarm cluster via their iPad or their iPhone or their Android, I guess? The feature would certainly work from there. As the device gets smaller and smaller, it gets away from your desktop and laptop into a mobile device like a tablet or phone, the ability for it to push data is going to go down. The feature still would work there. You probably won't get the same speed that you'd get from a traditional desktop or laptop that is connected to hardwired into a network rather than going through wireless. But this is absolutely meant for the situation where you are out in the field someplace, and you maybe don't have all the software available to you. You've just got your laptop or desktops, and you're pushing files up. You're pushing dailies up back into the central cluster. Definitely, and let's go ahead and go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to show the demo video now. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. And there is no more exciting video than showing an upload video.
I couldn't agree.
Well, here we're just selecting the bucket name, and we're going to name a bucket, create a new bucket. And then there's a few different ways to add files to upload. You can drag and drop files, or you can just click the add button to go ahead and browse files on your PC. That's what we'll do right here. And here's the exciting part, the parallel processing part. You see a lot of progress indicators coming up. But you'll see that everything's queued, and the uploads work in a parallel fashion. You're not going in sequence. You're not waiting for one to follow the other. And as Eric mentioned, once the segments are up on Swarm, everything is stitched back together via Swarm. So that is a patent that we're applying here, something that's unique to us, or we do in a unique way. And now your files are uploaded and ready to share.
That's right. So that parallel writing capability that we have makes it so that there's no intermediate caching or spooling that's necessary. We have the browser really is writing directly into the storage system. So once the browser is done with the upload is truly there in the storage and ready to be used and persisted. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is the sharing feature. This actually takes, this again is based upon some observations of what would make it easier for end users to manage and use their content in the system. Inside of our content portal now, we have this sharing link, which allows you to very easily access features such as copy the URL to your clipboard so you paste it into a text message, to immediately download, initiate a download of it, or to start an email with the link in there already. It eliminates the need for third-party apps and services. We would see what we mean by that is that we saw where people might have a file in the system and they wanted an easy way to give a link to somebody else in the organization so that they could see what they were talking about. And they'd take it and they'd upload it into a service like Dropbox and then give the link there to somebody who's sitting, a few desks over from them. And why not give them the ability to do that just right in the system where they could just start an email message or start a text message right to that person. It also still keeps the file within the system, so you're not sending proprietary content out to some public service and then bringing it back into your network. It's meant to eliminate this idea of file sharing by using these external services, or to put them on hard drives or flash drives and share them around. These features, you see this theme where I could create a video clip of something. I might actually upload a bulk set of videos that I've shot remotely through the bulk upload. I then may create a video clip of it through the partial file restore feature, and then I have the ability to easily share or let people download just a portion of that project that you wish to bring some highlight their attention on. And so the generation of these URLs is automatic. They can be revoked, so you can grant permissions to let people use them, even make it publicly available, or you can revoke these at any time you wish. Do we have a demo for that, Adrian? Or?
Yeah, we absolutely do.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and share my screen. It's all teed up. So here, just like the other videos, it all starts with finding the file you'd like to share. So again, we'll go to our videos bucket. Then you just select the file that you would like to share. Here we're selecting Byte, and then it's really as easy as clicking that share button up at the top. So you'll see the options that are available to you. You can copy the URL, download the link, or email it. Here we just copied the URL. We can just drop the URL in a browser. And this is being streamed directly from Swarm, directly from the archive layer. So it's that easy to share files. And as Eric mentioned, you can revoke the rights to that URL at any time, and your content is protected. So the way we're seeing organizations use this, we're seeing them use it to stream content that they don't want to send to a CDN. So we do have a few sports teams that are using our solution, and they're using it to share a lot of their farm league content or a lot of the training videos that they traditionally had a lot of issues sharing. They would ship thumb drives around, ship hard drives around, because those videos were important, but they were also large. So they're using us in that way. And this could be used for any content. It doesn't just have to be video. You can share audio files, you can share documents, you can share images. So this is a very powerful feature that really makes it very, very simple to share files. Anything to add to that, Eric?
Yep, I think that covers it.
And, I guess one thing I should mention is, you add this, you need to think of this as a platform. So this isn't just a singular thing. So you can enable this type of feature function for anyone in your organization, any department, any division, any application. So that's why we showed the foundational components to our entire platform. Right now, we're just focusing on what's new in Swarm 11. But when you add this to the multi-tenancy aspect to Swarm, you really get a very powerful content management, content sharing, and content preservation tool.
Agreed. So let me talk about the next feature in Swarm 11, and that is the ability to use an S3 service for backup and disaster recovery of your cluster. This is a feature that has been asked about a lot for customers that have a primary data center, but don't have someplace else, don't have another data center in a different location that they want to set up, or is feasible for them to set up for their disaster recovery. And so the obvious question is, why can't I make use of some of the public clouds that are out there to be my DR site? And so this is what this feature gives you access to. So in our system, we have the granularity of you can back up the entire cluster there, but a lot of times your content that you wish to target for disaster recovery is usually a lot more targeted than that. You may have limited bandwidth going out of your home site out to the internet, and so you need to have a subset of information. So we let you do this as, you could do the whole cluster, but you could also select on a storage domain by storage domain basis in our system for data that is sent to this backup feed. It does make use of our existing replication feed mechanism. So this is the mechanism that has been in Swarm for several releases now, which is the capability for it to move data, in a predictable and verifiable way from one cluster to. We leverage that same mechanism for this backup. It will work with, in terms of AWS S3, it'll work with any region in Amazon. It will work with Glacier or with through things such as the lifecycle rules that you can already set up on your buckets with Amazon. It also works with things such as infrequent access, so that you can achieve some cost savings if you are, if you're willing to trade access time, basically on recovery. If you're willing to trade that for the monthly cost, then you can make these choices as they are appropriate for your organization. It does work with any storage service or device that has a basic core level of S3 compliance. So it doesn't necessarily have to be AWS S3 that you're sending this to. You can use other cloud services such as Wasabi, or you could use, there are tape systems that have S3 interfaces to them. You could use those as a backup target. So it doesn't necessarily have to be off-premises that you are going with this. It could be on-prem devices that also have S3 interfaces. Of course, we use SSL or TLS encryption for secure transfer of the data. So it's not necessary for you to set up a VPN connection to wherever you're going with this. It will encrypt it by itself during transport. And we support the use of if you wish to do bandwidth throttling, we will support going through a proxy server, even proxy servers that require authentication, so that you could throttle the bandwidth of your outbound bandwidth, so that it doesn't monopolize your connection out to the world. Now, on the backup, I mentioned that you get to select by whole cluster or by storage domains, but the restoration of your content can be done much more granularly than that. You can restore individual files if you wish. You could restore individual buckets, or you could do whole domains or your entire cluster. The restore is predicated off the idea that you have none of the original site that did the backup still available to you. So this is truly set up for a disaster recovery scenario where I can do a restore of some or all of my content into an entirely new, fresh cluster if that's necessary. But it is more flexible than that, in that if you still have your cluster, if you just accidentally deleted some stuff and it's in the backup, then you can do a restore of that as well. So it's very flexible in terms of how you can do restoration. Adrian, do you have a video? Do you have a demo of this?
Yeah, we have a demo of this, so let me go ahead and get it set up. Okay, let me share my screen. Let me know if you see it. Are we good?
I see it.
All right. So as Eric mentioned, you can back up a domain or entire cluster. So here, we're just taking a look at, first of all, what we would like to back up. And again, we're demonstrating videos. This is a very targeted release. So we go to the Swarm UI management console, and you see feed. Been in there for a very, very long time, since the beginning, and you'll notice a new feed selection S3 backup. So you just go ahead and select that. You go ahead and name the feed. You enter in the domain you would like to back up. Then you type in your target S3 information, your region, your bucket, your secret key, your credentials. SSL is optional, as Eric mentioned. He also mentioned the forward proxy for bandwidth throttling, if you'd like to go ahead and use that. And then you just save. And that's it. Your feed is set up, and it will continuously run. So what is the frequency of runtime, Eric?
There is no frequency, really. It's continuous. So as new content is created, it is immediately queued for transmission through the feed. As existing content that was already in the cluster when you define the feed is, as the normal background processing of the cluster is constantly going through your data in the background to make sure the data is still protected appropriately, make sure it's still good on disk. As that process runs just continuously in the background, it also recognizes content that needs to be queued for this feed. So immediately upon definition of that feed, content that already exists in your cluster will just immediately start migrating or start being transmitted there, as will new content that is created, that I now go and create in that cluster. It's going to be immediately queued for transmission. So there is no frequency per se. It's going to always be there. It's stuff that is in the cluster already that hasn't been sent will be queued for sending, and new stuff that arrives in the cluster will automatically also be queued for sending. So it's a real-time kind of system.
Yeah, and this is really powerful. I mean, just to say what you said earlier in a different way, I think, and put it in the context of some stuff that's happening in the world today. Let's say there's a storm or a hurricane or something like that takes out your primary data center. How would someone go about restoring to an entirely new data center if they lost their primary data center? Okay,
so first, I'm sorry for you if that happens. But the way this would be done is that you would set up the hardware in a new location, get it onto the internet, and then from a standard Linux system, you'd run this restore tool, and you would give it the same information that you set up when you define the feed. You tell it what is the Amazon region, or what is the the other services endpoint that I'm using for this? What are my credentials in the system? So how does it log into the AWS S3 system? And then you'd give it the scope of the files that you wish to restore to your new cluster. And so you could tell it, in one operation, I'd like you to restore everything, or you could be more selective than that. You could go through and you could restore, perhaps you have certain domains that you wish to get first out of the system. You could target those to be, copied back over the internet first. So, in terms of how you do the restoration, it's about set up the new hardware, run the restoration tool, give it the credentials and the coordinates where that data lives, and then tell it what you want it to bring back, and let it start doing its work.
Great. And we have our first question.
That's going to run in parallel. So it will use multiple connections out to the internet to saturate that bandwidth in order to bring that back. So it'll work as fast as your bandwidth will allow it to work.
Oh, right. So it's leveraging some of the technology that we saw earlier in the demos, or I guess the architecture that we displayed earlier. So we do have our first question, and it is about S3. The question is, how efficiently does this use S3? What kind of charges can I expect to be racked up on my account?
That's actually, and I'd like to really highlight something about this feature that you should compare with other solutions, and that is that we are very efficient in the way that we use S3 with this. So especially where you're going to be paying based on transactions and bandwidth in the system. Bandwidth, really download bandwidth, is typically charged for pretty heavily. So in terms of efficiency of operations, we have kind of a one-for-one kind of match between, we're going to write an object into the system. There's a single write operation that goes into the system. We do some existence checking on objects in the system. We are very efficient with that. That operation is actually quite cheap to do within AWS. And so once stuff is put into the system, really the main charge that you will be paying for is the month-to-month storage. The actual operational costs, how many storage operations do we do per month in the system? That's going to be just kind of a rounding error on the overall bill that you get for it. The predominant part of the bill will be your month-to-month storage of data in the system. Now, that is up until the time that you need to restore something back. When you need to restore something back from the system, your predominant charge is going to be for the download bandwidth, or bandwidth out of the cloud provider, if they charge for that. If they don't charge for that, there are some other online public S3 systems that don't charge for outbound bandwidth. So in that case, you wouldn't be, really, your predominant charge would be your monthly storage under management charge that they'd have for you.
And we have another question. Can I use the S3 backup for my other AWS operations? I think said another way, can I use the data that I back up for other AWS operations?
At present, we don't let you do that. What we will be exploring in the future is ways to unlock additional uses of that data once it's in a service such as AWS S3. The objects are put there in their native format. So we're not doing anything like creating some encoded version of your objects there. But if you've been following our other webinars and our system, we have a much richer namespace than the online cloud storage providers give you. We have things such as storage domains, which are sort of roughly equivalent to AWS S3 endpoints or regions, but they're much more granular in that I could have one like my home domain, And I could create a storage domain for a shared project that I might work on with other folks. We may have other shared projects in the company that, we've got storage domains for. So storage domains in our system we use as a way for you to manage and keep your content in the system organized. Whereas that's really that the endpoint region name or URL host name in AWS S3 is really used to get you to a particular geography or region in the world. And so we have that. We also then have tenants in our system. And so we had to make some adjustments in terms of how we wrote those objects into the S3 system so that we could preserve the richness of our namespace and allow you to restore back to a completely fresh cluster, in the event of a disaster, without giving up, without losing that information. We also have a lot more. You can put a lot more metadata on objects in our system. So we had to do some things in the storage system that would make it not so obvious how to immediately use that stuff for your own applications. But that is an area that we know that there is some demand for that, and we want to enable that kind of use case in the future.
And this is a phased approach. So this initial approach is all about disaster recovery, making sure that you can't corrupt the data that is sent up there. That being said, when we do move down in the product lifecycle, as Eric was mentioning, we'll do it in a way that's backwards compatible, where you do not need to re-upload the information already on S3.
Yeah, we were very cognizant of that future direction when we wrote this thing, and so one of the things that we absolutely wanted was we wanted that the content that you put up there today using this mechanism was going to be usable for other purposes in the future. The absolute no-no was that you would have to, take your data back out and then put it in again to the system. We didn't want you to. We didn't.
We have, I think there's one more question. I think there's only time for one more question. We have about 2 more minutes. And the question is, do you preserve version history with S3 feeds?
Absolutely, we do. So that's part of what I was mentioning about. We have a richer system than a lot of the cloud providers can express. And so versions are one of those things. So we have versioned objects, and backed up and DR'd in the cloud.
Great. I know that looks like the last question. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to send them to info@caringo.com, and they'll get to Eric and me. So, just in summary, here's what we demonstrated. Here's the value that we opened up with, what Swarm 11 brings to the table, specifically for you. It allows you to access only the portion of video needed, upload files 5 times faster through any HTML5 enabled browser, securely share and stream internally or externally, and ensure accessibility, content accessibility and disaster recovery with distributed S3 protection. And let me go ahead and put our URL up there. You can also see our Twitter feed. If you don't want to email info@caringo.com, you can always go to caringo.com. There is a button to contact us on every page. You can follow us on all of the major social networks. And with that, I think we've just hit our time. So, Eric, is there anything you'd like to add in closing?
Nope. Thank you all for coming today, or when you're listening to this in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone again. And once again, I'll mention info@caringo.com, where you can follow up directly with your Caringo representative. We look forward to hearing from you. And thanks everyone for your time. Thanks, Eric.